Good evening, everybody. We're leading tonight with a bombshell undercover story and footage taken by investigative reporter James O'Keefe, who reveals the dark side of the deep state intelligence community, which has conspired against President Trump and sought to subvert him as president. James O'Keefe joins us tonight with his report and his blockbuster undercover video. The claims against the CIA revealed by O'Keefe Media Group are truly shocking. It shows a project manager for the CIA and NSA named Amjad Foussesi, a contractor with Deloitte with top secret clearance, spilling secrets about the intel community's plot against President Trump.
I work in the intelligence community. I work in the CIA. I do cyber operations. I've been doing it for a long time.
So how long have you been working at the CIA?
Since 2008. I also worked at NSA too. And then I have a TSSCI with a full scope polygraph. That means that I'm fully vetted.
Amjad Foussesi shows her his CIA identification badge.
No, where does it say?
Does it?
Hey, that's the point.
That's the point.
What's CMC?
China Mission Center, darling. That's my mission.
And even more disturbingly, the intelligence contractor revealed the invasive and unconstitutional 24-hour surveillance that the most powerful three-letter agencies in the country are carrying out against the leading presidential candidate.
We kept information from him.
Say one more time.
We kept information from him.
From Trump?
Yes. He's an idiot. There are certain people that would give him a high-level overview, but never give it any details. You know why? His whole leak those details.
So the agencies kind of like all got together and said, we're not going to tell Trump.
The higher-ups.
The higher-ups.
We put it this way, the executive staff, we're talking about the director and his subordinates.
Like what titles are they? They're
Director of the CIA.
director of the CIA would keep.
Yes.
Are you guys still watching him?
I would say yes.
It sounds like you guys are still watching him and his team.
Of course we are. Nothing goes by.
Well, the abusive and illegal surveillance ensnaring not only President Trump, but everyone around him, including his wife. They even tracked his burner phones, truly unconscionable.
And we also have people that monitor his slot.
So you guys had human sources,
How do you think we get information?
like wiretapping? Is that what?
Steal it.
How did you guys figure out that Trump was colluding with the Russians? Did you guys use...
It's human intelligence.
So the intel community was able to use FISA to spy on Trump and his team. And that's how we found out that he was colluding with the Russians.
That's correct.
Was it the CIA or the NSA that spied on Trump?
So it should be all of them.
So you're saying that your agency, or CIA...
A lot of the agencies, but yeah, he's not going to get re-elected again. I've done the math. I think possible. We have a choice here. Do we want our democracy or do we want a madman?
Yeah.
He wants to be a dictator.
Does it say the CIA on it?
No, we can't do that. And then I worked at NSA for a year.
Okay.
And I was doing some really cool cyber stuff, which I cannot tell you about. Did the Office of Director of National Intelligence. So I helped them stand their insider threat program. They trusted me to set that up.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, right?
And joining us now to take up these explosive revelations is investigative journalist James O'Keefe. James, first of all, congratulations on another blockbuster story, a great report. And to think what it must have taken to get the video footage, the extraordinary exchanges. Give us a sense of what you went through just to set that up, if you would, just to begin with.
Well, Lou, thank you for having me on. I mean, we came across this guy because he worked for Northrop Grumman, or he had worked for Northrop Grumman, which is a military contractor. And then in the initial meeting, he disclosed that he worked for the CIA. And the undercover reporter, my first thought was, how do we know this? How do we know he's just not making this up? He's using puffery. So it became kind of a mission to try to corroborate that. And I'm not going to get into exactly the methods, but we
Yeah.
asked to try to verify that, and then he showed us his badge, Lou. It's a green badge. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but green badges are
Right.
the CIA contractors, and it said China Mission Center on the lanyard, which is one of the recent divisions in the CIA appointed by Director Burns.
Right. Well, it's an extraordinary tale, and he tells quite a story. But as we look at what he said, it's on one hand, it's staggering to think that it's being confirmed by a CIA related contractor. But we've watched what the CIA has been doing. We have looked at what the NSA, the intelligence community, has done. The FBI, National Security Division, has done. To see it verified in this remarkable report of yours is amazing. And as you would expect, James, the CIA, well, they didn't confess. They're in fact denying all of the shocking findings of your report and disavowing the intelligence contractors' claims. No surprise here. The CIA says this, quote, "These claims about CIA are absolutely false and ridiculous. CIA is a resolutely apolitical institution that provides intelligence support to policymakers, including the President of the United States." I mean, we could go on, and perhaps we will, but the only thing I could do, a big, bright, in-color picture of John Brennan showed up as they were talking about how apolitical they are. Your thoughts?
Well, the last part of that statement was the individual making these allegations is now a former contractor who does not
Right.
represent the CIA. I think the fact is that they actually issued a statement, Lou, and I'm a citizen journalist. I don't represent a big cable news network. The fact that the press secretary is getting on the phone with me and giving a statement, I think, shows just how significant this is. That you get a guy saying these things. You never get a guy inside the intelligence agency speaking so brazenly and openly like this. I think they're taking it very seriously, and it looks like he's been terminated. But I would say that a lot of what he said is, as much of a villain as he appears to be, Lou, a lot of what he's saying corroborates the reporting done by Michael Schellenberger, Matt Taibbi, some of these guys that had anonymous sources inside the agency that said the same thing about FISA warrants and spying on Trump's family. He's saying the same thing those guys did. He's just saying it on video, and that's why it's so devastating.
Yeah, it's quite remarkable. And the fact that the CIA has the temerity, frankly, to come back and say that the contractor that you had on video is no longer employed here is quite a statement, because that means there was a reason to fire him, and that reason is your reporting. It's stunning stuff to think that the CIA is this clumsy, and that they have been so just extraordinarily energetic in lying to the American people for all this time. I think back to those 51 intelligence veterans, James, who put out that letter just before the last debate of the 2020 presidential debates, and they were lying through their teeth. And Bill Barr, the Attorney General, knew that Joe Biden was lying through his teeth about the lies from the 51 intelligence veterans. I mean, we're in really dark, murky, and dangerous waters here with the intelligence communities, don't you think?
I do, and I know that there's a lot of people working there that are in agreement with you. Probably even the majority. They just can't do anything. They're scared. They're afraid. So, as dangerous and dark as the waters are, I think it should provide a glimmer of hope that you're finally seeing this stuff come out. And this guy, he is willing to say these things. The fact that you have a reaction from the CIA, I thought one of the most remarkable things about it was that he talks about Trump's using burner phones, and I've heard from sources that that's true. So a lot of what this guy says checks out. I think a lot of what he says is he's just being honest, and I think we need documentation to back up what he says. And I don't know if he was in the room with. He mentions Mike Pompeo, the director. He mentions Gina Haspel. She was the director back during the Trump presidency. I'm sure there's other documentation and evidence, and I encourage those whistleblowers to come forward to Matt Gaetz, to Congress, to Jim Jordan, whoever you need to, but congressional whistleblower, or come to O'Keefe Media Group. I think the only thing these people fear, Lou, is journalism. They fear sunlight, probably more than they fear Congress at this point.
Well, James, I just want to turn to what a CIA briefer named David Priest, who worked under President George W. Bush, said, quote, President Trump, for the first several weeks of his administration, wasn't briefed on the entirety of the CIA's covert action programs of the previous administration. And to this day, there are intel analysts talking to the media about denying Trump intel briefings during his 2024 campaign, saying, I'd be afraid about giving him stuff like that, saying it openly. What is your reaction given what we saw covertly from the CIA and the NSA and perhaps other agencies as well?
I think what this individual, Amjad Fasisi, said as a current CIA contractor in cybersecurity at the China Mission Center corroborates all of those things that you just, perhaps Amjad Fasisi said it more brazenly and bluntly and openly, but he's been there since 2008. He has a position of authority and access, so he understands the culture and the current climate of the organization. It corroborates a lot of what other reporters and a lot of what other officials said. Sometimes, Lou, people just need to see. You can have 10,000 pages of written evidence, but to hear it in their own words like this, it kind of speaks for itself.
Yeah, it does. And it certainly is not only corroboration, it's validation of, in many cases, what are the worst fears of most Americans, that we have an intelligence community that is frankly deeply divided in terms of its loyalty and its goals, and sometimes those goals seem to leave out the interest of the United States itself. Your bombshell reporting and the video is just remarkable. And as you pointed out, this is basically treasonous behavior, and this is a very serious matter. Matt Gaetz, among others, calling for investigations already. Your thoughts, where we go from here?
Where we go from here is other people need to come forward. Other people need to blow the whistle. Congress can provide whistleblower protections. Maybe it's documents. Maybe it's other people doing what this brave young lady did. And I was saying that, it used to be, if you see something, say something. That motto, right. The government's watching you. And I think now citizens are watching the government. And you need to keep your ears and eyes about you. And O'Keefe Media Group has a hotline where you can message us. We have a program where people can do this sort of citizen reporting, and we can pay you for it. It's not easy. It's not for everybody, but I think it kind of whipsaws. It kind of gins up more sources when you see something like this and inspires other people to take a look. Lou, when I was standing outside CIA headquarters in Langley, there were people honking their horn at me coming out of the building and saying, I'm a huge fan of what you're doing, James O'Keefe. I was shocked by that. I mean, these are people who they're probably being monitored. There's cameras, but there's a lot of people out there that agree with you. Perhaps they're just afraid to say so publicly. So it's really the fear thing that we have to overcome.
Right. And that fear, as you say, exists within the intelligence community. And that's what stops a lot of good and decent people who work there from doing the right thing. And it takes considerable courage. James, your bombshell report is just terrific. It can, again, makes it very clear that there was a conspiracy at the highest levels of this government, the deep state, including former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo and CIA Director Gina Haspel. If indeed this is all, if everything plays out as it appears it will. James, thanks for being with us today. Thanks for your intrepid reporting as always. And thanks for joining us here on Lou Dobbs Tonight. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Lou.
And on Tuesday, Marxist New York Judge Juan Merchan hit Donald Trump with a $9,000 fine because the president wouldn't stay quiet about his persecution. Judge Merchan would rather his victims sit silently as he brings to bear the full weight of our weaponized system of justice, brings it down on their heads. Trump isn't playing his game. Today, Merchan is mulling even more fines against Trump, Prosecutors are asking for at least an additional $4,000. Of course, they would take every dime of President Trump's money if they could, because this has nothing to do with justice. It has nothing to do with right and wrong. It's all about injustice and it's all about wrong. And it's taking the men challenging the Marxist-Dem stranglehold over America, crushing him with lawfare. It's about sending a message. I've got to pick up that. That didn't make a lick of sense. Let me see what I've got.
Just go ahead and pick it up when you're ready.
Okay. It's really all about taking the man who's challenging the Marxist Dems and the Biden regime's stranglehold over America, trying to crush him with lawfare. It's about sending a message to you and me and our fellow citizens saying, quote, this is what happens to you when you go up against us. And while President Trump's trials have divided the country, there is one thing we certainly agree on. Very few people like Michael Cohen. He is the central figure in the prosecution's case. Cohen, of course, a former Trump attorney, will be a key prosecution witness. This is the same man, by the way, who pleaded guilty in 2018 to federal crimes. Cohen has incessantly attacked President Trump on social media using profanity, weaving insane lies. Even the jurors apparently can't stand this obnoxious attention seeker. So on Tuesday, Judge Merchant warned Cohen, get ready for this, if he continues to go after President Trump, the court just might lift the part of the gag order that prohibits Trump from going after Cohen. As if President Trump needs any permission to defend himself. Despite all the attacks and all the witch hunts, President Trump still relishes the campaign trail. And he had a day off yesterday, and guess what he did? He got on the campaign trail, held 2 rallies, and he loves all of the folks who support him and MAGA. Here's President Trump shaking hands with law enforcement officers in Wisconsin on the way to his rally. He is most definitely pro law enforcement, and they are definitely pro President Trump. On the stage, President Trump also demonstrated some of his impressive athleticism. Watch this and imagine Biden doing the same.
Good looking Uncle Sam, though, huh? Give me a pen, somebody. Let's get Uncle Sam taken care of. Come on. Give me a pen. I got to get a pen. Let's go. Yeah, good. Just throw it up there. Give me a pen, please. You think Biden can bend down like that? I don't think so. Where's Uncle Sam? Here's your pen back. Thank you. Uncle Sam. You got it, man.
2 perfect pitches, and I think the president's right. Biden could never. Well, joining us now to take up President Trump's trials and the campaign trail is attorney, former federal prosecutor Bud Cummins. Bud, it is great to see you again, and thanks for being with us. Let me turn to what you're watching in that federal court, that state courtroom in New York City, and Judge Juan Merchant with the president in absolutely mandated attendance for 6 weeks. Your reaction?
Well, it's hard to watch, and I frankly don't watch a lot of it because it's such a farce. What I have watched and read about is so fabricated and is such a farce and such a great concern for our system of justice that I think every citizen ought to be concerned about it. But yet we all have to sit on the sideline and just watch it happen like it's a public execution, and we're not allowed to get out of our chairs. So it's very frustrating.
Yeah, there are great similarities to it. I guess it's the next best thing as far as the Marxist Dems are concerned, to put Trump, the judge ordering him to be in that chair, every day of that trial for 6 weeks. It's ridiculous, but it's a ridiculous judge. Uh, Give me your thinking about why there's so little reaction within your profession, attorneys, and I'm talking about day in and day out, from the biggest law firms to the smallest law firm. Why in the world is there not an outcry against what is absolutely an attack on law, an attack on the Constitution? We've watched 9 years of this persecution of President Trump, and it just gets worse and worse without response from the people.
Well, I think you have to start fairly with the fact that President Trump can be a real jackass sometimes, and he says and does things that make people very uncomfortable and make them hesitate to embrace. But whether you're for him or against him shouldn't really matter, because this is such an abuse of our legal system that every lawyer should step forward and speak out and try to resist the usurpation of this extreme power. Prosecutors, awesome powers that you just wouldn't put in anyone's hands unless you believed that they were trustworthy and were going to direct them only at wrongdoers. But here it's so political and so arbitrary that every lawyer should be standing up, just like every businessman should be standing up in this case, and certainly in the previous one about the loans and the appraisals. Every CEO in the country should have been standing up and speaking out, because if it can happen to Trump, it can happen to them. They all knew it was wrong, and they should have said something. But we also the left is smart. This is a multi-pronged attack, and they have developed a cancel culture, and every CEO is scared to death of losing his job. So they sit quietly and just watch it happen.
And that's why the corporate America has seized on diversity, equity, and inclusion, ESG, critical race theory, because that's they've bought off the fury of the far left by doing so, and now they can simply ignore it. They can't say anything, but they can ignore what's happening to one of the to a former president of the United States. The ignorance that is filling our corporate corner offices right now is sickening, because you talk about jackasses. This country is right now, our elites are jackasses, bud. And
Well,
yet they've had enough sense to buy off the opposition.
Public company people that work at public companies. I do. CEOs, COOs, CFOs. You know how they're compensated, and it's pretty incredible, the systems that they've developed for them to be paid, seemingly out of proportion to the talents and skills compared to people in the not the public company sector. They're scared to death of losing those financial packages. Most of them, to their credit, they get there by staying so focused on what they do that they really don't know much about politics. I've advised these guys. They really don't know much about it. They're just trying to make sure they're landing on the right square to not lose that compensation package. They want their companies to look good, and sometimes they make ridiculous. The Bud Light publicity campaign, was so tone deaf, but they were just trying. That's not because they believed in, trans rights. They thought they were landing on a good square to sell more beer, and they were dramatically wrong. But these CEOs are not public-minded people. They're very focused on their pocketbooks.
Well, I mean, you're being very generous, and I understand that. But the other part of it is the reason those corporations are doing that is not out of the goodness of their hearts. They try to triangulate the public mood most times, and they're very serious about staying out of the way of the social justice warriors and getting into any kind of controversy, because controversy would mean that you would have to be encouraging universities to shut down the anti-Semitic, Marxist, radical Islamist demonstrators, and far be it from them to do so. But your thinking on this is with Trump. Nobody's going to come to his rescue, and I think everybody, right up to the Supreme Court, has been intimidated by the left, Kavanaugh was a fellow was going to kill him, found in his neighborhood with a loaded gun. Chuck Schumer threatened him, saying that they're going to reap the whirlwind, Kavanaugh and Gorsuch, and we're going to pack your court, said Biden, if you don't do what we say, the way we want to do it. I mean, how are you going to get their attention if they're already scared to death of the Marxist left?
Everybody I talk to knows that this country is in great trouble. Everybody I talk to knows that there's a significant effort to destroy this country and put something else in its place. Nobody I talk to seems to know, and everybody I talk to seems to think that there might come a day where they have to pick up a gun and defend this country the way it is. Nobody knows when that day is going to be. Nobody knows what day it is that they're supposed to stand up and push back and say FBI, ATF, DOJ, Attorney General of New York, you have to stop. And I'm going to protest, and I'm going to stand up and put myself at risk to stop you because this is wrong. Nobody knows what day. I think there's a willingness and there's an understanding, but most of us law-abiding, tax-paying citizens don't know what day is the day to stand up. And I'm afraid we're all going to wait till it's too late.
Yeah, I think you're right. And it's going to be too late on November 6th if we don't elect Donald Trump, because I truly believe he is the Churchill of our times. And this is 1939 for this generation. Bud Cummins, thanks so much for being with us. And I'm sorry?
He can be a jackass, but I'll be voting for him.
Well, you can be a jackass too, Bud. And you know what?
Absolutely. I have been many times.
And you know what? I think we all fall into that category. So I don't think it's, particularly singling anybody out. Appreciate it, Bud. Joe Biden's border policies, if you can call them that, are so awful, and he is so in league with the Mexican drug cartels that even some Democrats are beginning to register their dissent. Yesterday, 13 House Democrats, Marxist Dems all, joined Republicans in denouncing Biden's immigration policies. They're really invasion policies. And in the words of President Obama, don't underestimate Joe's ability to screw things up. And please be sure to join us each and every day for my podcast, The Great America Show. And MyPillow is excited to bring you their biggest bedding sale ever. Get the Giza Dream Bed sheets for as low as $39.98. A set of pillowcases only $9.98. My wife and I sleep on Giza sheets. We love them, and we think they're unbeatable. And we've been sleeping on MyPillow Giza sheets for years now. And you can rejuvenate your bed with a MyPillow mattress topper and pay as little as $99.99. They also have blankets in a variety of sizes and colors and styles, like plush, waffle, and down for as low as $39.99. They even have blankets for your pets, and for all of us pet lovers, that's important. Yes, our dogs have MyPillow beds, which they love, and they even have dog blankets. Two of our dogs are a little older, and they absolutely appreciate both those beds and those blankets. Get huge discounts on duvets and quilts and down comforters as well, body pillows, couch pillows, and so much more. So please go to mypillow.com, use promo code Dobbs, and you'll be glad you did. Or call 800-977-9152. Get all of your shopping done now while quantities last. And remember, use promo code Dobbs. Great bargains, great quality, and a great promo code, don't you think? I'm sure you agree. Pro-Hamas protests have taken over campuses all across the country. The scenes at Columbia University and City College in particular, reminiscent of the destructive George Floyd riots of 2020. You remember the Summer of Love, demonstrators teaming up with Antifa, Black Lives Matter professional agitators, and then raising city blocks, striking terror into the hearts of law-abiding citizens, and even trying to burn down federal buildings. Well, look out. This looks like it's happening again. And according to police, half of the people arrested at Columbia and City College campuses, for example, over the past few days, were not even students. Of the 282 arrests, 134 individuals had no affiliation with either school. So who are these people? Who's funding them? Were they the ones who organized the takeover of Columbia's Hamilton Hall. Columbia, by the way, received 1.2 billion from you, the taxpayer, last year. You'd be thrilled to know. That's right, it's a private Ivy League school taking money from the government. But Columbia is far from alone in plunging into insanity. Take a look at this scene from the University of California, Los Angeles, UCLA, where pro-Hamas students partook in an Islamic prayer.
I'm here because I believe in freedom. You guys not sorry. I come from a place that
Not what?
never been a single Christian. I'm sorry to
Sure.
Many of the demonstrators undoubtedly were praying for, some forgiveness for wrecking UCLA's Royce Hall with their radical Islamist terrorism. And by the way, the affiliation of many with terrorist groups. Watch this. That's called pro-Hamas art. A few years ago, Royce Hall hosted a $25,000 per plate fundraiser. It looks like the ticket price will have to be considerably lowered in the future. But as bad things seem now in this country, it's important to remember patriotism does still abound. At the University of North Carolina, at Chapel Hill, brothers of the Pi Kappa Phi fraternity swooped in to protect the American flag as pro-Hamas demonstrators and, yes, agitators and professional protesters attempted to replace it with a Palestinian one. A fundraiser to throw the boys a party for their patriotism is so far, well, they've raised for that party that they're planning $347,000. And good on all of them for standing up for Old Glory. Similar scenes of patriotism also playing out in New York, deep behind enemy lines, as they say. NYPD officers reminding Columbia what it means to love your country. New York's finest pulling down a Palestinian flag and in its place raising the American flag. This at the City University of New York. The men who did that have more patriotism, certainly by large measures, than the entire administrative body at Columbia that has allowed these lunatics to run the asylum. We're joined today by James Lindsay. He's founder of New Discourses, and will join. And over the years, I'd have to say, Lindsay has carefully studied anti-American left-wing extremists, particularly Marxists, and we're delighted to have you with us. James, let's start with what you're witnessing. You've been writing and thinking about all of this for a long time, particularly Marxism. What you're witnessing on college campuses, was it in any way a surprise to you? Is there anything about it that you find particularly interesting at this point?
The only thing that I find interesting is how unsympathetic the subject that they're rallying around happens to be. I couldn't have guessed the timing. I couldn't have guessed that, right before the end of the school year, they're going to erupt this year. But it makes sense given kind of the strategy. But the closest historical parallel that I see to what's happening took place in China at their elite universities like Tsinghua University, Beijing University in 1966. That's when the Red Guard was unleashed for the first time. It had been fomenting and building up through the earlier part of the 1960s, and it was unleashed on the Chinese people, starting from those elite universities, starting by taking over their elite universities, and trying to plunge the country into terror and radicalism, and in a long bid to try to get Mao Zedong back into power. It was a campaign waged against the CCP, much like what I see now is a campaign largely waged against the Democrats. You'll see that there have been scenes where the left-wing protesters and the right-wing counter-protesters on campus came together in moments of cursing the sitting president. But that's because they want to extract concessions from the Democratic Party. They want to drive the Democratic Party further to the left, even if it can't get them to agree to its stated goals of divestment and so on. What I see then is a communist revolution going into another active measures phase as we lead into the summer before an election.
Yeah, and that, do you think it does portend what we're seeing, this radicalism, the affiliation with many of these demonstrators with terrorist groups? We're learning Mayor Eric Adams talking about that very thing. Almost half of the folks arrested, those demonstrators and protesters, had no affiliation to the universities. And there were at least three terrorist groups named, not named, but noted as being affiliated with those professional agitators.
Yeah, that's what I think is actually going on, is that this is being stoked up. We actually saw similar numbers at Washington University in St. Louis, where their university put out a statement saying that the majority of the people that got arrested were not affiliated with the university as students or faculty in any capacity whatsoever. So this is being stoked up. This is what was referred to in the 1960s and 1950s in the Chinese Maoist context as planned spontaneity. Which means that it's not spontaneous at all. It gives the illusion that it's a spontaneous grassroots movement, but the word that we use for that here in the West is astroturf. There are big money organizations, we know that the Qatari government seems to be one of them, that are dumping money into these demonstrations. And the magic word that is a little technical, it's hard for the average American to understand, as to why are they doing something? If these are communists, for example, or socialists or Marxists, why are they doing something Islamic? The word that people need to learn is called counter-hegemony. The Western values, the American values represented by our flag are hegemonic, as they say in the United States. They are our prevailing value set. Anything that's against those values is counter-hegemonic and is therefore valued by the radicals. As David Horowitz, former member of the Students for a Democratic Society, which spun off the Weather Underground, was a very radical leftist organization, and he became a conservative. As he said, the saying was, the issue is never the issue is always the revolution. So the issue that we're seeing, in this case, pro-Hamas, anti-Israel, is not the relevant issue. The issue is to bring in forces that are against prevailing American values and against the Constitution of the United States.
Yeah. It's interesting because as you're watching these pro-Hamas demonstrations, as we are all watching it, and usually being quite infuriated by the way in which the universities respond, we're dealing with a Marxist administration in most cases in major universities across the country. We're dealing with a Marxist faculty in most universities across the country. And then we're dealing with, in the instance of radical Islamists, because that's who we're watching here when we see them align themselves to go to prayer. We're talking about a conjoining of the radical Islamists with Marxists to create what is now a global movement. We're watching this play out, James, as you well know, in capitals all over the globe. As we wrap up here, your thoughts on the international aspect of this?
This is a global movement. It is a global movement against the Western hegemony in the world. The goal is ultimately to facilitate the destruction of Western nations like the United States, Canada, Great Britain, Western Europe, and to facilitate the rise of its enemies. In particular, in this case, we have the Middle Eastern contingent and we have the Chinese Communist Party contingent. We can probably speculate that there's a Russian contingent as well, and those are allied in the BRICS alliance, which is trying to set itself up economically as a competitor to the US dollar and our economic strength. So this is a global move. That's why we're seeing it take place on a global stage in capitals and in cities and at universities, not just in the United States, but across the world.
James Lindsay, as always, great to have you here. Thanks for your insights. And you have a new book out, The Queering of the American Child. We recommend it to everyone watching this broadcast, as always we do, of bright writers with new ideas and important ideas. James Lindsay fits that category. And James, thanks for being with us. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Luke.
COVID accountability is a deadly serious matter, as we all know, and there is a reckoning that's been a long time coming for many of the co-conspirators who committed massive fraud against the public and who weaponized the viral pandemic to create what was an unconstitutional state of emergency and to further empower the surveillance state, even to rig the 2020 election against President Donald Trump. Wednesday, Congress held hearings with Dr. Fauci's partner in COVID crime, Dr. Peter Daszak of EcoHealth Alliance. And the big revelation? That Wuhan still has 15,000 potentially deadly weaponized coronaviruses sitting in the communist Chinese laboratory. And the American government helped put all of them there.
The record, which is the email sent to NIH proposing the work to be done and the revised specific aims, which clearly state no further samples will be brought out of China and that sequences are already in EcoHealth's possession.
And we don't have those emails, so
we will happily share them with you, of course.
And the samples are still in the custody of the Wuhan Institute.
Well, unless they're not, but to the last of my knowledge, they were in the freezers in Wuhan.
Is
and
there
over 15,000 of them?
Rather calm and casual about 15,000 coronaviruses. It's just amazing to watch the glibness with which they talk about gain of function, and the fact is ignored that 1 million Americans died as a result of that pandemic. Now, the House Select Subcommittee on the Coronavirus Pandemic made a number of top-line findings about this group, EcoHealth Alliance, stating bluntly this, quote, EcoHealth Alliance used U.S. taxpayer dollars to facilitate gain-of-function research on coronaviruses at the Wuhan Institute of Virology in China. And more importantly, Dr. Daszak, quote, Dr. Fauci and other health leaders have repeatedly played semantics with the long-standing, widely understood definition of gain of function in order to avoid accountability for funding and facilitating this dangerous research. In point of fact, America, these people are fraudsters, and they should be, in the minds of many, in prison for conducting dangerous and illegal coronavirus research with an enemy of the United States, lying to Congress about it throughout, and lying to the American people from the beginning of the pandemic. This isn't that hard, and endless investigations aren't scaring anybody and won't put a stop to it, as Congressman Guy Reschenthaler of Pennsylvania put it. Quote, I find it deeply disturbing that American taxpayers footed the bill for over $1 million to support dangerous and potentially deadly research at the Wuhan Institute of Virology, a laboratory with ties to the Communist Chinese Party and military biological research. So to be clear, let's be very clear. You were lied to by your government. You were lied to by the very doctors we depend upon for the leadership of our public health agencies, and you were lied to by the Biden administration throughout. Well, it's clear the government didn't want the American people to know anything about it, and we're going to now turn to Dr. Mark Richards to find out exactly what we should be worried about in this very moment about Wuhan, all of the coronaviruses, bird flu, and a government that will so easily and readily lie to us. Doctor, great to have you with us.
Thank you, Mr. Dobbs. I am pleased to be here discussing this with you.
Dr. Richards, I mean, this is appalling. We are now 4 years, better than 4 years, into that pandemic, and still we don't have many of the answers, forthright answers that we should have. What does that suggest to you? Is it simply so complex an issue, or is it that there is this vast conspiracy to keep the American people well away from the truth?
Well, I would counter that the answers are actually already out there. They've been out there. They're easy to understand. And the censorship that was unprecedented when this virus first escaped the lab tells a big story. It tells a big story of why we're having such a hard time with this. In 2015, Ralph Baric basically created this virus. You know, not exactly this virus, but essentially took SARS spike, put it on the coronavirus virus. Right. And his assistant was Xi Jinping from the Wuhan lab. And, you know, we banned...
Say that again, doctor. Say that again.
Xi Jinping, the bat lady of Wuhan, was his co-author and assistant on that article in 2015. So the record in the science literature is extremely clear where this virus came from, how it was man-made, and it was designed to kill humanized mice, and it could spread through the air. It was the first time they had done that. And Ralph Baric receives majority of his funding from the Defense Department and other agencies that do biowarfare defense contract work. So you're already in the secret realm. And this is the problem. As we discussed off air, there has to be a political will. So when the virus came out in 2020, knowing this article from 2015 and knowing that the French had warned us that they built this lab in Wuhan and it was leaky because they used local contractors and we should never do dangerous research there in 2018. And DARPA, Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, looked at Peter Daszak's request and refused it in 2018 as being too dangerous. And then the Defense Department and other agencies went into their black budget, did not inform NIH authorities or safety review channels, got the approval of Fauci. He wrote a check. DOD wrote big checks. And all this research money went through Daszak, who made a nice about penny off of it. And they funded Wuhan, all for personal gain, knowing that it was too dangerous. Every regulatory agency that had reviewed this decided it was too dangerous. The intelligence agency that reviewed it decided it was too dangerous. But these people did it anyway. And they did it under a cloud of secrecy in what is typically a secret program. So I wrote about it in March of 2020 and couldn't get any newspaper to publish it because they said you'd have no idea how much pressure we're under not to publish anything of this sort. It didn't matter, it was true. All the editors knew it was true. They just wouldn't publish it. And it just went on from there. There it's a cover-up, Lou. And once you start covering this up and you get all these powerful people involved, then once you start pulling the threads, they get very uncomfortable. Yes, I agree with you. Peter Daszak should be in jail. Anthony Fauci should be in jail and never let out. They both lied to Congress. They both did research that killed millions of people. They both pushed policies that killed many more people by a mRNA platform that failed in animals, certainly doesn't work in most age groups of humans. And then they went on to push it through their political force at the FDA and CDC and other things into children, when children only have a 3 in a million chance of dying from COVID, according to the CDC statistics looked at by Stanford University. So this crime ends up compounding itself to a point where they've killed 3 times more people than the Nazis killed Jews in World War II. And we had the Nuremberg trial. So then where do you go, Lou? I mean, you have Congress saying there's a crime that was committed here. So you have to get DOJ to say, okay, we're going to investigate that. But you need to have the world court do it, because we won't do it, because it's our dirty underwear that's going to get exposed.
You had me right to there. When you say world courts, Doctor, I got to be honest with you. There's no way in hell I'd support world courts impinging on our sovereignty. What I would support is a Congress actually getting off its tail and actually talking straight up instead of holding pretend hearings. And by the way, bringing in front of them Dr. Mark Richards and other doctors with integrity and with definitive knowledge of what actually transpired. Doctor, it's always great to talk with you. I appreciate it. Troubling times in which we live. I hope you have a fallback position for those world courts. I mean,
well, I'll tell you, we had the Nuremberg trials.
They're rancidly corrupt. Ours are just corrupt.
They are corrupt, but an interesting thing happened. There was a trial in Helsinki about the COVID viruses and the cover-up and the fraud that Pfizer was doing. And there is a lot of call for a Nuremberg-type trial, because the problem is, if we do not hold criminally accountable the people inside our agencies that created this, then there is no disincentive for them to do it again, because they all made tens of millions of dollars off of it. And that's the problem. It will happen again until people are held accountable and not just an administrative agency.
Well, if we ever get to the point that we're dependent on world courts for justice, and by the way, we may be nearing that. We may be nearing that. That'll be the day we lose the constitutional republic. And so I will be adverse to that for a while, but I'm absolutely pro Dr. Mark Richards. Thanks for being with us. And we appreciate, as always, your time and your insight and your knowledge. Dr. Richards is also the author of Nobody Wants You Healthy. I love the subtitle, Achieving Better Health by Avoiding the Corruptions in Modern Medical Science. And we recommend to you highly Dr. Richards' book. And here now, another way the medical community is threatening the health of Americans. America First Legal has uncovered stunning emails that show the U.S. government seeking ways around state law in order to push transgender genital mutilation and sterilization onto defenseless children. Now, it may come as no surprise, but the child predator behind all of this is Dr. Rachel Levine, a supposed female who is actually a biological male who is dressed in drag and who is Biden's Assistant Secretary of Health and Human Services. This repulsive child groomer wrote this about Idaho's state ban against child castration and genital mutilation, that, quote, our heart goes out to our LGBTQ brothers and sisters in Idaho and their healthcare providers, end quote. And Levine agreed to help trans activists find ways around state laws that the Biden regime is a threat to parents and children. No hyperbole. It is filled with perverts and degenerates, and it's conspiring to go around parents' backs to get as many children as possible to mutilate themselves, to be mutilated, and defile their bodies. Whether parents agree or not, truly dangerous and sick people are frankly trying to gain control over your child and their futures. God help us, and let's keep working to get this country back on track. Let's try to turn our attention away from all the madness and turn our attention to, without question, the welfare of our children. And now, our attention goes to a lighter story about former President George W. Bush. He's unveiling a series of paintings called Portraits of Courage, a commander's tribute to America's warriors at a most unlikely place, Disney World. The former commander-in-chief, who destabilized the Middle East and paved the way for the security state, is now teaming up with one of the wokest companies on earth, Disney World. It's a fitting place for the art of a commander-in-chief who ran an oftentimes contentious and inadequate presidency. Can I say it that way? And before we go, I want to talk about something really exciting. When Mike invented the original MyPillow, it had everything you could want in a pillow. Now, nearly 20 years later, Mike has discovered a new technology that makes MyPillow even better. The MyPillow 2.0 has the patented adjustable fill of the original MyPillow, but it now also has fabric made with temperature-regulating thread. The MyPillow 2.0 is the softest, smoothest, and coolest pillow you'll ever own. Right now, MyPillow is offering a buy one, get one free on the MyPillow 2.0 when you go to mypillow.com. And please use promo code Dobbs or call 800-977-9152 and say goodbye to tossing and turning and flipping your pillow over during the middle of the night. Take advantage of this buy one, get one free offer by going to mypillow.com and use promo code Dobbs. And please join us each and every day for my podcast, The Great America Show. We thank you for being with us this evening. Please join us here tomorrow. And God bless you, and God bless America.
I'm excited to announce we're having a huge MyPillow spring sale. And here's a few examples. Buy one of our MyPillow 2.0s, you get another MyPillow 2.0 absolutely free. Made with cooling technology, the best pillow ever just got even better. And this just in, 9 brand new colors and styles of our Percale bed sheets. They're made with the finest long staple cotton, and now you can save 50% or more. That's as low as $24.98. And for the first time this year, I'm bringing you our My Slippers and Sandals for as low as $25 a pair. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to get your MyPillow 2.0s. Buy one, get one free. Percale sheets as low as $24.98. My slippers and sandals as low as $25 a pair. And for a limited time, when you order $75 or more, your entire order ships absolutely free.
Three years ago, FrankSpeech.com was launched during the height of mass media censorship to give voices back to those who had their voices silenced. This April, Lindell TV celebrates 3 years of uncensored truth about America's stolen elections, the voting machines, and the fight to return to paper ballots. Today, we stand at the precipice of a new era, covering the most important presidential election in American history. An era defined by the battle for some of our most fundamental rights: freedom of speech, freedom of press, and secure elections. We at Frank Speech refuse to be silenced. We refuse to bow down to the forces that seek to dictate what we can and cannot say. We are the media now. Join us in this fight at FrankSpeech.com.
You might not want to hear what we're saying, but we're going to say it. Mike Lindell here, and like you, I see our country being destroyed daily. We face massive economic issues, and I can tell you from firsthand experience, there are people in power who threaten the values that have made our country great. Well, I've been a believer in gold and silver for a long time, and I've searched for years for a partner that shares my values. Well, Genesis Gold Group showed me how easy it is to protect your IRA, 401k, or your retirement with gold and silver. Their faith-driven approach to service and stewardship is one that stands out from the rest. So call Genesis Gold Group now at 1-800-200-GOLD. That's 1-800-200-4653, or go to LindellGoldRush.com now.
Hi, I'm Joe Altman with Conservative Daily Podcast, and I'm here to celebrate the 3-year anniversary of Frank Speech. Big things are happening, and some of them have 4 wheels. 4 wheels, world-class safety, and great gas mileage. Can you guess what's next?